Hello, I'm Bob Mary, and today we're discussing the news around the world. Over in Germany, old boy Adolf Hitler and his Nazi party have legalized the robbery of anything deemed degenerate art. While this has garnered the attention of international critics, Nazi authorities assure this law strictly applies to art only owned by Jewish people. In more serious news, all around the nation sweeps a new phenomenon, already declared the picture event of the year. Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs have been playing all over the country this weekend. Not only is this the first fully animated feature film by Walt Disney, but all broadcasts are to be in Technicolor. Undoubtedly to attract attention far and wide, it is recommended you get your tickets while you can. Speaking of news, a terrifying and controversial new figure has emerged in America. Dressed in unusual blue clothing and calling himself Superman, attacked the governor of Ohio's home, knocking the door down and somehow lifting the doorman clean over his head with a single arm. This Superman proceeded to rip down the steel bedroom door of the governor and apparently threaten the politician, forcing him to overturn the scheduled execution of Evelyn Curry, a woman thought to have been a murderer. Though it does appear Miss Curry is very much innocent, and the governor has become convinced that Superman is working on the side of law and order. One man was left with light injuries after Superman appeared to have thrown him around a bit after discovering said man beating his wife. This man was arrested and then sent home without charges because the year is 1938, and while wife beating is generally considered immoral and has been illegal nationwide for 18 whole years, rarely are any arrests actually made. Experts say this will remain true for a disturbing period of time. Later, Daily Star reporter Lois Lane was captured by Butch Arden and his gang of criminals, until they too were attacked by this Superman menace. Incredibly, this superhuman is said to have chased after the car, lifted it up over his head, and smashed it to pieces. Superman's most recent activity is by far the most disturbing, as this strange new vigilante was seen trying to try out kidnapping for himself. He grabbed a lobbyist down in Washington, D.C. and cruelly tortured the man by jumping on power lines, risking them both being exposed to a fatal amount of electricity. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, this newsman has covered a great deal in his lifetime, but this has to be the most alarming thing I have ever read. If somebody doesn't do something about this new villain, this Superman could kill us all. The self-described champion of the oppressed could reduce our ability to oppress the masses and maintain the status quo, and not once has he been seen stealing Jewish art. In other news, across various states, a major string of crimes have been taking place. In the last few weeks, 2 railroad detectives, which is a real thing you can look up, have been murdered, along with a brakeman. Authorities discovered $20,000 in goods was being stolen. These crimes were investigated by Detective Brady and his companions, the magician known as Zatara and his friendly ethnic strongman named Tong. Zatara and Tong were able to save another detective named Brown, who revealed that Detective Brady was in on the train heist, and they witnessed Detective Brady's body being dumped off the train. This was all the work of a villainess known as the Tigress, who nearly killed Zatara. She escaped following this, so Zatara worked with train officials and state troopers to stage a trap for the woman. The magician then discovered Tigress's crew and hypnotized them using his trademark spells he is able to cast by speaking backwards. Though Tigress was able to free her minions from this and knock the magician out cold. Zatara woke soon after and managed to free himself from his bindings using sleight of hand, allowing him to escape. He summoned Tong and took out a corrupt police officer working with the Tigress, such that the two men were able to confront the woman once more. The Tigress's gun was turned into a banana by Zatara, forcing her to flee while all men involved were successfully arrested. With the evidence found during the investigation, Brady's name was cleared of having any involvement with the Tigress post-mortem, and he was buried with honors. Zatara vowed to hunt this dastardly woman down, though only after Tong's much-deserved nap. After exposing a major network of extortion and airplane sabotage, private detective Bruce Nelson was enjoying a trip on a cruise where he stumbled on a crime scheme involving the theft of a valuable diamond. A number of high-profile criminals all vied for what is called the Omar Diamond, leading Nelson to hatch a plan with the wealthy diamond owner named Parsons. In doing so, a number of these thieves were exposed and arrested, all while Bruce personally kept the diamond safe by taping it to his body. As a reward, one of the young criminals, who Nelson took a fancy to, was granted to Bruce's custody as a parolee. City officials declined to comment on questions regarding the ethics of such a decision, and as part of their standard protocol, our station is now under investigation for possibly being anti-American by asking too many questions. In other news coming out of the Big Apple, an Indian prince named Nadir has finally recovered the coveted Pearl of the Bleeding Heart. Nadir is a prince from the strange and mysterious land of India. He recovered his claim to royalty among his people and began to work with his assistant Arcot in New York City, fighting crime wherever these brown-skinned men may find it. Sir Thomas Ellsworth had Nadir look into the pearl's theft. The Bleeding Heart was discovered by Ellsworth and his partner, Henry Dupree, in southern China. The situation proved dangerous, as an attempt was almost immediately made on Nadir's life, but using his array of modern scientific equipment and ancient oriental rarities of black magic, he was able to locate his would-be assassin and found his attacker was indeed not only the thief, but Henry Dupree himself. Guided by his magic ring and crystal ball, Nadir tracked Dupree down and attacked the criminal. But he was ambushed by Dupree's manservant named Job. They imprisoned Nadir, but Job discovered that Dupree planned on betraying him, so he killed Henry and took the pearl for himself. Worried about Nadir, Arcot followed his master, confronting Job in a shootout and freeing the foreign freelancer. They went to the home of Henry Dupree and found a hairbrush of Job, from which they were able to perform a crystal bath using an ancient, long-forgotten secret of the Far East to learn of the villain's location. Using hair or other biological samples is generally considered a controversial and feckless means to track down criminals according to the police, as there is no known code in human biological matter that distinguishes them between others. Nonetheless, using these dark arts, they managed to find Job on a vessel called the Mary Lou. Job and his accomplice, the captain of the ship, ambush Nadir and knock him overboard, knocking the color right out of the Indian man. He was rescued by a couple of sailors passing by, and met with Arcot to catch up with the ship in their private plane. The men encountered a storm on their way, and only just managed to escape the plane as it crashed. The two washed up on a nearby island, which had an older man living on it alone, and he took them in for the duration of the storm. Meanwhile, Job's sea captain got drunk, and they got lost in the tumultuous waters. They crashed into another boat and were forced to rescue the survivors, with the two planning on fleeing the Mary Lou with the Pearl of the Bleeding Heart. That night, however, the captain killed Job and took the pearl for himself, fleeing on a lifeboat before the others could discover his crime. As for Nadir and Arcot, they managed to procure another plane and used Nadir's crystal ball to learn of Job's fate and the sea captain's location. Landing in Cuba, they tracked down the sea captain who was selling the pearl to a jewel fence named Sammy. This attracted the attention of a number of criminal associates of the fence and captain, members of the Cuban mafia. After a fight with Nadir, they attempted to flee by automobile, which in turn attracted the attention of the police. The mobsters were arrested, and at long last, the Pearl of the Bleeding Heart was returned to its rightful owner, the British imperialist Sir Thomas Ellsworth, who stole it from war-ravaged China. Our final story for today features the emergence of Doctor Occult, a so-called ghost detective. This vigilante and his assistant Rose Psychic have recently gained acclaim for their newly invented crime detection machine. Doctor Occult claims this machine uses an extremely sensitive needle to detect malignant thoughts and determines their source. This, along with a number of other fabulous supernatural abilities the Doctor possesses, such as teleportation, hypnosis, and invisibility, have turned Occult and Rose into a tremendously effective crime-fighting duo. Only time will tell what supernatural adventures await these two, but with important and powerful figures like Doctor Occult out there, hopefully the world will remain safe against menaces like Superman, the worst villain of them all. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Bob Mary, and these are the developments of the world on June of 1938. There is also this massive war going on between China and Japan, where thousands of people are actively dying every day in a bloody conflict, leading to enormous civilian casualties and ethnically motivated war crimes. But very few white people are involved in this war, and therefore it's not really worth talking about. Thank you and good night.